Africa's demographic moment. Why the 21st century may belong to Africa. Imagine the world in the year 2100. The global balance of power looks very different. The largest workforce on Earth is not in Europe, not in North America, not even in Asia. It is in Africa. Factories, innovation hubs, universities, technology centers, and thriving cities stretch across the continent. A generation of young Africans is powering the global economy. This is not a fantasy. According to global development economist Jeffrey Sachs, the demographic transformation already underway in Africa could become one of the most important economic stories of the entire 21st century. But this future is not guaranteed. It depends on the decisions Africa makes today. And that is why Sachs delivered a powerful message to African leaders during the recent African Union Summit. His message was simple. Africa is entering the most important moment in its modern history. If the continent invests wisely, it could become one of the most powerful economic regions in the world. If it fails to prepare, the opportunity could slip away. This is the story of Africa's demographic rise, the numbers behind it, and the choices that will shape the future. The population revolution. To understand Sachs's message, we must begin with one of the most dramatic demographic shifts in human history, Africa's population growth. In 1950, the entire continent had about 230 million people. That was roughly the population of the United States at the time. Most African countries had recently emerged from colonial rule. Economies were small and infrastructure was limited. But over the next 70 years, something remarkable happened. Africa's population began to expand rapidly. By 1980, it had doubled to about 470 million people. By the year 2000, it had reached over 800 million. Today, Africa is home to more than 1.4 billion people. In just a few generations, the continent's population has multiplied several times, and the growth is far from over. According to long-term projections from global demographic research institutions, by 2050, Africa's population could reach 2.5 billion people. By 2100, it could reach around 3.5 to 4 billion people. That means nearly 4 out of every 10 people on Earth could be African by the end of this century. This scale of demographic change is almost unprecedented, and it carries enormous implications for the global economy. But population growth alone does not create prosperity. What matters is how societies transform population growth into economic strength. The demographic dividend. Economists use a term called the demographic dividend. This is when a country or region experiences a large number of working-age people relative to children and elderly populations. When this happens, a society gains a powerful economic advantage. More workers means more productivity, more innovation, more entrepreneurship, more economic expansion. Countries that successfully harness this demographic moment often experience rapid economic growth. History provides several examples. In the second half of the 20th century, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and China experienced dramatic economic expansion. These countries invested heavily in education, industry, and infrastructure while their populations were young. As millions of young workers entered the labor force, their economies accelerated. Poverty dropped, industries expanded, living standards rose. This is the demographic dividend in action. And Sachs believes Africa is approaching this phase now. Africa's young population. Africa has the youngest population in the world. The median age on the continent is around 19 years old. Compare that with Europe, where the median age is around 44, or Japan, where it is even older. In many advanced economies, populations are aging rapidly. Birth rates are falling, workforces are shrinking, governments are struggling to support growing numbers of retirees. Africa is experiencing the opposite trend. Millions of young people are entering adulthood every year. This means Africa is poised to become the largest workforce on the planet. By 2050, the continent could supply a major share of the world's labor force. This demographic energy could power economic growth for decades, but only if the right investments are made. That is where Sachs's message becomes urgent. The warning. During discussions with African leaders, Sachs emphasized that population growth alone does not guarantee prosperity. In fact, without preparation, rapid population growth can create serious challenges. If millions of young people enter adulthood without education, skills, or employment opportunities, societies can face rising inequality, instability, and economic pressure. But if those same young people receive education, training, and opportunities, they can transform economies. This is the difference between a demographic burden and a demographic dividend. Sachs argues that Africa stands precisely at this crossroads. The continent has the potential to achieve sustained economic growth of 7 to 10% per year, but achieving that requires bold investments. Education, the foundation of prosperity. The first and most critical investment Sachs highlights is education. A modern economy depends on skilled people, teachers, engineers, doctors, scientists, programmers, technicians, entrepreneurs. Africa's youth must be equipped with the knowledge and skills needed to compete in a global economy. This means expanding access to primary education, secondary education, technical training, universities, and research institutions. Countries that invest heavily in education create a workforce capable of innovation and productivity. Education also drives entrepreneurship. Young people with knowledge and skills are more likely to create businesses, develop technologies, and solve local challenges. Across Africa today, new universities, innovation hubs, and technology centers are emerging. From Lagos to Nairobi, from Kigali to Accra, young entrepreneurs are building startups in fintech, agriculture technology, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence. These early signs show what is possible. But scaling these successes across the continent will require sustained commitment. Infrastructure, building the foundations. The second major priority Sachs emphasizes is infrastructure. Economic growth depends on systems that allow goods, services, and information to move efficiently. This includes reliable electricity, modern transportation networks, digital connectivity ports, and logistics systems, water and sanitation systems. Many African economies still face infrastructure gaps that slow economic development. Businesses struggle with unreliable electricity. Farmers face difficulty transporting crops to markets. Manufacturers face high logistics costs. Closing these gaps would unlock enormous economic potential. Large-scale infrastructure investment can create jobs, improve productivity, and connect regional economies. In recent years, Africa has begun expanding its infrastructure network. Major highways, rail systems, and digital networks are being built across the continent. But Sachs argues that the pace must accelerate significantly. Infrastructure is the backbone of economic transformation. Health systems and human development. Another critical pillar of development is healthcare. Healthy populations are more productive populations. Investments in healthcare reduce mortality, improve quality of life, and enable people to participate fully in the economy. Over the past decades, Africa has made significant progress in improving health outcomes. Life expectancy has increased, child mortality has fallen, access to vaccines and medical care has expanded, but health systems still require further strengthening. Expanding hospitals, training medical professionals, and improving public health systems will help ensure that Africa's growing population remains healthy and productive. The power of regional integration. Perhaps the most transformative idea Sachs emphasizes is African economic integration. Africa currently consists of more than 50 countries, many with relatively small domestic markets. Small markets can limit industrial development, but when countries integrate economically, they create larger markets that attract investment and enable large-scale production. This is the idea behind the African Continental Free Trade Area. The agreement aims to create a single market for goods and services across the continent. If fully implemented, it would become one of the largest free trade zones in the world. Regional integration can reduce trade barriers, encourage industrialization, and strengthen economic cooperation. Instead of operating as dozens of fragmented economies, Africa could function as a powerful continental market. This is exactly what Sachs believes is necessary. He argues that Africa must begin thinking not just in national terms, but in continental terms. A unified market of billions of people has enormous economic potential. Urbanization and the rise of African cities, Another major trend shaping Africa's future is urbanization. Across the continent, cities are growing rapidly. Urban centers are engines of economic activity. They concentrate talent, infrastructure, and innovation. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Johannesburg, and Kigali are becoming hubs of entrepreneurship and technology. Urban growth can accelerate economic development by bringing people, businesses, and services together, but it also requires careful planning. Housing, transportation, sanitation, and public services must expand alongside population growth. Well-managed cities can become centers of prosperity. Poorly managed urbanization can create overcrowding and inequality. The challenge for African governments is to build cities that are sustainable, inclusive, and economically vibrant. Technology and the digital leap. Africa also has the opportunity to leap forward through technology. Unlike earlier industrial revolutions, today's digital economy allows countries to bypass certain stages of development. Mobile technology, digital banking, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence are transforming how economies function. Africa has already demonstrated its capacity for technological innovation. Mobile money platforms revolutionized financial inclusion. Millions of people gained access to banking services through mobile phones. Today, African tech ecosystems are expanding rapidly. Startups are attracting global investment. Young developers are building solutions tailored to African markets. With the right support, Africa could become a global leader in digital innovation. The global implications? Why does Africa's future matter to the rest of the world? Because demographic change will reshape the global economy. In many developed countries, workforces are shrinking. Economic growth is slowing. Governments face increasing pressure to support aging populations. Africa's youthful population could help balance this global demographic shift. African workers, entrepreneurs, and innovators could drive new waves of economic growth. Global markets will increasingly depend on African consumers, producers, and talent. In other words, Africa's rise will not only transform the continent, it will reshape the world economy, a moment of choice. But Sachs emphasizes that none of this is automatic. History shows that demographic opportunity can be lost. Countries that fail to invest in education, infrastructure, and economic institutions may struggle to harness their population growth. The choices made today will determine Africa's trajectory. Will the continent transform its demographic momentum into economic strength, or will it struggle to provide opportunities for its growing population? This is the defining question of Africa's development in the 21st century, a vision for the future. Imagine an Africa where young people have access to world-class education, where modern infrastructure connects cities, industries, and markets, where innovation hubs drive technological breakthroughs, where businesses grow across integrated regional markets, where economic opportunity expands across the continent. This is the vision Sachs believes is possible, not decades from now, but within the lifetime of today's young generation. Africa's population growth is often described as a challenge, but Sachs argues it can be something far more powerful. It can be the engine of transformation. The story of Africa in the 21st century has not yet been written. But the numbers are clear. From 230 million people in 1950 to more than 1.4 billion today, to potentially 4 billion by the end of the century, Africa is undergoing one of the most significant demographic transformations in human history. This transformation carries enormous potential. A young population, expanding cities, growing technology sectors, increasing regional integration. The ingredients for economic transformation are present. But realizing this future will require vision, investment, and cooperation. As Jeffrey Sachs reminded African leaders, population growth alone does not create prosperity. But when a young population is empowered with education, opportunity, and infrastructure, it becomes the most powerful economic force in the world. The decisions made today will shape the continent's future and perhaps the future of the global economy. The 21st century may well be remembered as the century when Africa rose. The moment is here, the opportunity is real, and the world is watching. Africa is unsung hero, the current and future world lifestyle frontier. Majok is a public health expert and artificial intelligence specialist based in Australia.